Of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Podcast Network and on Patriots Press Pass. I'm Evan Lazar. Alongside with me is Alex Barth, as always, and hopefully my voice makes it through the rest of this show because I can already tell that it is about to go after 3 straight days of being on air for both of us. It seems
Hopefully I make it through this show.
I went out for my morning coffee run this morning, Alex, and I heard the great voice of real Alex Barth on 98.5 this morning with Ted Johnson. Yep. So we're both grinding away here. And we're going to discuss the day 3 picks for the Patriots in the draft. That's going to be the focus of this show. If you want to go watch us break down Cole Strange or Tyquan Thornton and Marcus Jones on day 2, we already did those podcasts on Friday and on Saturday. So you can go ahead and see in-depth breakdowns on those guys. We are going to circle back at the end of the show and discuss the draft as a whole. And that we'll get into the top picks again at that point as well. But I want to start with the day 3 guys. Those are the guys that we haven't talked about, at least since they've been drafted by the Patriots. And we'll start right here at 4-121, Alex, a 4th round pick, cornerback Jack Jones from Arizona State. Probably the most predictable pick of the entire draft for the Patriots, just due to the fact that the Patriots did a immense amount of public homework on the player. It's one of the first times I can remember in a long time where the Patriots were all over the player in the pre-draft process, and then they ended up actually drafting him with a top 150 pick. You know, sometimes we hear about these guys and they end up coming here as UDFAs or 6th rounders or something like that. But to have a top 30 visit, then have a visit in Tempe in Arizona with Jack Jones, and then to actually make the pick here in the 4th round, this one was the most predictable pick of the draft.
I was actually a little surprised by this. I was not totally surprised they took him. Because he wasn't the only Arizona State corner they worked out, right? They worked out Chase Lucas. I actually liked Lucas better. And I thought they would like Lucas better. I really did. So I'm not surprised. Like overall, I didn't see Jack Jones' name be like, really? They took him? But I don't know. I thought Lucas, especially in that spot, made a lot more sense. I don't entirely hate the pick. I think Jones comes with a high floor, which they need at corner. They need a guy who can play right away. 3 years of experience, 3 years of full-time experience in the Pac-12. I don't know. That was kind of my initial reaction was not Lucas like that. I think I texted you that. I think I texted you, not Chase Lucas. So, not a bad player. I'd be interested in, I didn't get a chance to ask Matt Groh yesterday, and it's a tough question to really ask, player versus player, but I'd be interested to know why they took Jones and not Lucas.
So I think the main reason why they took him is what you mentioned was upside. This was a 5-star recruit at a high school, played at USC, played well at USC for his first 2 years as a freshman and sophomore. We know about the off-field issues. We just lost Alex. We'll get him back here.
Sorry about that. I'm back. Sorry about that.
Yeah. We know about the off-field issues with Jack Jones, and I think that's where the top 30 visit and the visit to Arizona come into play to vet the player, to talk to him, make sure that his head's on right and that he's going to be focused on football. When I watch him on tape, honestly, I think he's got a lot of talent. His cover talent is really, really good, especially in man coverage. He's got that ability to really live in the hip pocket, in the shirt of the receiver. He can mirror receivers all over the field. He's in phase a lot. There's not a whole lot of plays where he's struggling to keep up or behind the player, and he has really good ball skills, 10 career interceptions, 30 pass breakups, and you see that burst and that ability to get his hands into passing lanes. So I think there's a lot of talent here with Jack Jones. And look, I've seen a lot of draft grades, value charts, things like that over the last 24 hours since the draft ended. Really, not even 24 hours since the draft ended. And Jack Jones was another one of those picks that a lot of people saw as a reach, right? A lot of people thought that he was going to go later on in the draft. But I look at it and I say, well, in the past, when the Patriots have really liked a player like Jack Jones at corner specifically, they probably reach on him in the 2nd round. Right. Yeah. So at least they waited to 121 to make the pick that they were probably going to make the whole draft. Right. This was their guy to play outside corner in this draft, and they went and got him. I think that he's got some really good coverage skills, especially in man, like I said. And I'm getting to be okay with this one. I think this is a pretty solid player in terms of talent. I like Chase Lucas a little bit as well, but I think that they view Jack Jones as a guy that has starter level upside, and I'm not sure if Chase Lucas will ever get there.
So I think with Jones, the thing with Jones, you look at, if you want to hang your hat on this pick, is they have a history. One of the things I think they like to target are highly, and not I think, like I know there's a tendency of this, it's in the books. They like to target highly ranked high school recruits who, for one reason or another, don't pan out in college. And I think they basically like to bring these guys in and say, well, what was there in high school that for whatever reason, that potential, why wasn't it tapped into in college? Can we tap into it? JC Jackson was that guy.
Yeah.
In terms of background, this is actually very, very similar player where JC Jackson was at Florida. He got in some legal trouble. He ended up transferring out of Florida, ended up at Maryland, went undrafted. And then they took him. But JC Jackson, I don't remember by the time recruiting day came around, he was number one, but for a solid chunk of his senior season in high school, he's the number one recruit in his class.
Yeah.
And Jack Jones I don't think he was number one, but again, it's the same thing where he's a 5-star recruit. And obviously that potential wasn't recognized at USC and then Arizona State, but the Patriots see that and say, well, there's something here. There's clearly something here. Can we tap into maybe what that detour, the year off JUCO, that might have like put him off the track? Can we put him back on the track? I think that's the thought process here. Again, and I feel this way with a lot of the picks they made throughout the 3 days. The NFL draft's about adding good players. They added good players. The questions for me are more about the guys they didn't add. You know, somebody in the chat brought up Khalil Shakir. I look at this point in the draft, whether it's Jalen Amore Davis, whether it's Zion McCollum, whether it's Tariq Woolen, right? To me, it's about, you know, there's going to be this draft has the potential to have a lot of revisionist history. I think Jack Jones can play. It's just, did they take, I think they took a guy. It's just, did they take the right guy?
Yeah, we're going to be playing that game, I think, with this draft, like you said, for pretty much every pick that they made. I would say with Cole Strange, it's not necessarily comparing him to players at his position. It's just comparing him to players that went in that range.
Daxton Hill is going to be the one.
Right. Daxton Hill went after him. Quay Walker went a pick after the Patriots' original pick. Trent McDuffie went with the pick the Patriots traded to Kansas City. Kyer Elam went to Buffalo a few picks after Quay Walker. So those are going to be the guys that you're going to say, okay, well, you had in this 10-pick range, we had all this defensive talent and we took the guard. It's not so much about Cole Strange. It's not so much even about the guard position. It's just really more about who they could have taken. With Tyquan Thornton in the second round, Sky Moore, George Pickens, Alec Pierce, they all went in that 10 to 15 pick range. So we'll see. It's going to, for better or worse, that's what these guys are up against. They're up against comparing the guys that at their position specifically, in most cases, the guys that went around them and the guys that were clustered around them on the board. All right, let's move on to the running back that the Patriots selected in the fourth round, 127, Pierre Strong from South Dakota State. This is one of my favorite picks of the entire draft.
Love this pick.
Pierre Strong.
Wait, hang on. We need to stop here for a second.
Here we go.
The running back was one of your favorite picks of the entire draft. I'm so proud of you, Evan. Look how far you've come. Look at this.
That tells you how I feel about the draft as a whole. When the running back is my favorite pick of the draft, that's how you can tell that I'm lukewarm, to say the least, on what they did over the last 3 days. But Pierre Strong, nevertheless, what I love so much about this pick is, well, it's two things. One, I love that they focused and they actually, what's the word? They held true to what they said when they said that they wanted speed, right? They said they wanted to get faster. They said they wanted to get more explosive. And here they come in with a 4.37 running back with 10 touchdowns of 50+ yards on his tape at South Dakota State. That
9.34 RAS score too.
Yeah. 15 carries of 30+ yards last year. 811 yards after contact. This is a guy that breaks tackles and then hits home runs, right? And that's something that I think that Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson might not necessarily have in their bag. Those guys are great running backs. They're great slashers, I would say. They can break off 15, 20-yard runs, and they're very, very good runners. Don't get me wrong. but Pierre Strong is a true home run threat with the football. And that is not something that they had in that running back room. So I really like this pick for the Patriots. I also wouldn't he only had 62 catches throughout his career at South Dakota State. I wouldn't completely write him off as a pass catcher by any means, though. I think this guy's got so much physical talent that he will develop as a pass catcher. And he did show some flashes at the Shrine Bowl of being able to catch the football and run routes and things like that. So I think that Pierre Strong they're viewing Pierre Strong in my mind as more of a do-it-all back, and somebody like he's going to be better or have a higher upside, but just off maybe Dion Lewis, Rex Burkhead, like those types of guys are the role that I think they have in mind for this kid, not Sony Michel, where we're just going to put him on the field on first down and have him run on 1st and 10.
Yeah, I faster Rex Burkhead is kind of the comp I've made for him. I love the pick too. A lot of people were wondering, I don't know why. A lot of people are saying they don't need a running back. They absolutely needed a running back.
We've been mocking running backs to them. Not that we got the right one, but we've been mocking running backs to them.
As Big Board did, though.
Oh, yeah, of course. We've been mocking running backs to them for months, right? I mean, we've been talking about them drafting a running back on day 3 for 12 weeks on this program.
Yeah. And look, we'll get into some of this when we talk about Kevin Harris too. Not every running back does the same things. They have multiple needs at the running back position. It's the early down and the pass catching back. Strong can probably do both, but you need realistically 4 or 5 running backs to get through a season.
Yeah.
We've seen it kill them a couple of times, multiple years. We've seen it kill them not having enough backs. They have really 2 definite NFL running backs on the roster right now in Harris and Stevenson. James White, no disrespect to him, he's coming off a serious hip injury. We don't know where he's at.
Yeah, Mike Reese actually wrote about James White this morning on his notes column, and he said that he's still got a ways to go to come back from hip surgery.
I don't, when I say they have 2 NFL backs, James White is obviously an NFL talent. He's one of the most underrated players in the league. We don't know that he's going to be ready to play to start the season.
We don't even know if he's going to be back to the same guy that he was pre-injury. That's one of those injuries, Doc Jess Dede does a great job with injuries in sports in Boston specifically. And she said at the time when he'd had the injury and the official injury was announced as the hip subflexion, that some guys at that age, especially, they're never the same after that. And I hope that's not the case with James White, but the Patriots as an organization have to plan in advance that might not be the case.
So you have Harrison Stevenson, who are legit, but neither one. I think they both can be pass catchers. The Patriots just don't use them like that.
Yeah.
But you have James White, who you don't know. I'm not counting on JJ Taylor for anything. I know we bulked up, and that's great. He hasn't made any headway in 2 years. And then Divine Onzigbo is a practice squad guy.
Right.
So you need 4 or 5 backs to get through the year. They had 2. They absolutely needed at least 1 back. I think Pierre Strong can do it. I'm not writing off as a pass catcher either. You mentioned that the numbers aren't necessarily there. Well, South Dakota State doesn't throw the ball a ton in general. I'm not sure if the opportunities were there for him to build the numbers, but I think he has the skills needed to be a pass catching back. He sees the field well. He's got good footwork. I think he's big enough to be a blocker too. He's 5'11", 202. That's enough to get the job done in pass pro. They'll coach him up there. So I really like this pick. I really do. I think he's the kind of guy who's going to contribute in their offense for a long time. One of my favorite picks of the draft, probably my favorite pick on day 3. I still really like the Marcus Jones pick. I really like the Tyquan Thornton pick too, but again, they got speed. He's not just like straight line fast either. That 40 time, having watched him, I didn't think of him as like an elite 40 guy. He's a guy characterized more as quick than fast, like the short area quickness.
Yeah, his lateral cuts are Dion Lewis-esque, right?
Yeah, no, he gets in and out of he puts his foot in the ground and he goes. So
the one stealing comp that I heard from a lot of people that I talked to with him was Lashawn McCoy, which I see.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Right. You see the slitheriness, you see the jump cut ability. Lashawn McCoy's Twitter handle is cut on a dime, right? Yeah. And you kind of see that ability with Pierre Strong a little bit. I don't
hate that.
I don't want to. I wrote an article on CLNS.com with player comps for all 10 of the guys, right? And I wouldn't go there because Lashawn McCoy to me is an awesome player. Like that guy was the bee's knees.
That's the ceiling comp.
Right. So I didn't want to go there because I didn't want to put that kind of pressure on a guy like Pierre Strong, right? I see a little bit of Lamar Miller in his game as well, just in terms of the straight line speed. Lamar Miller was a 4.4 guy coming out. He's a track guy.
He's also bigger, isn't he?
Yeah.
Lamar Miller's like a big guy.
Yeah, he's maybe a little bit bigger, but Miller also was pretty good at catching the football as well, and he was a do-it-all back for the Texans for a while. There's also maybe a little bit of CJ Spiller in his game too. I saw that in the chat. I could see that as well. But the one that I am hoping, if he hits his ceiling as a player and he develops into the guy that I'm hoping he will, is Shady. I think there's a little bit of that in his game. And you watched him at the Shrine Bowl. I know it's just a screen pass. It's not necessarily, a route that he ran and got open at the top and made a move and got open or whatever. But at the Shrine Bowl, he took a screen pass, I think 70 yards to the house, and they clocked him at like 21 miles an hour in the open field. So this is a guy that can definitely run. He can run. He can create big plays. And now they've got two guys in Thornton and Pierre Strong that they put those guys on the field. They now have some real speed, not like, oh, Kendrick Bourne's fast for a guy that runs 4.55, right? Like we're talking about some guys that ran track and some guys that could maybe be on the U.S. Olympic team in another life. So that's something that I think that Patriots fans should be really excited about.
Yeah, no, again, I mean, I'll stick with my faster Rex Burkhead comp for where he is right now, but this was a good pick, and we'll get to the other running back in a little bit, but this was a good pick.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is my favorite pick. Like I said, I know you're giving me a hard time about the running back being my favorite pick, but
next you're going to tell me the punter was your favorite UDFA.
No, but the guys.
I know he's not. I know who your favorite. I know who your favorite UDFA was.
But I got to stay true to, the Patriots stayed true to their board, right, Alex? I got to stay true to my board and what I watched out of these guys beforehand. And Pierre Strong was easily one of my favorite running backs that they could have drafted outside of the top 100. And on my board, this is exactly where he should have been drafted by the Patriots too. So one of the best value picks in terms of lining up where he should have gone and where he did go. It's exact. 4th round, Pierre Strong. That was exactly what I was hoping to see from them. Okay. The next one here, 137. I 110% understand why the Patriots want to keep the quarterback room stacked. I understand why they want depth at quarterback. I understand that they've done this in the past. 10 quarterbacks drafted when Tom Brady was on the roster. A handful of those were guys before Brady became 40 years old and was starting to age. And we're not just talking about Jared Stidhams and stuff like that. We're talking about
majority were top 150 picks.
Yeah, going back a ways, Rohan Davey, Kevin O'Connell, guys like that, Ryan Mallett. Those players were all drafted high too. But the reason why I don't really understand the Bailey Zappi pick is because to me, Bailey Zappi is 110% a long-term backup in the NFL. I don't think there's starter upside with this player. And I'm not saying the Patriots need a starting quarterback, but if you're going to draft a quarterback in the 4th round, I at least want him to potentially have that in his bag, right? Because eventually he could become a trade asset, just like Jimmy Garoppolo was, just like Jacoby Brissett was. And when he gets to the end of his rookie contract and Mac is making Pro Bowls like we all hope he is, then I don't know if long-term backup, whereas where I compared him to Nick Mullins, I kind of feel like they sort of see it as he could be our next Brian Hoyer. He could be our backup to Mac Jones for the next 20 years, right? And that's valuable. I get that. But in the 4th round, I felt like they could have gone in a different direction. I thought there was just too much talent still on the board, especially on defense, where they still could have added a guy that could have made an impact as a rookie or in his 2nd year on the defensive side of the ball and actually played. Or you hope that Bailey Zappi never has to play, right? That's
right.
The point.
So I agree with you in that. I like the pick. I like Bailey Zappi. I've been on record as liking Bailey Zappi. My question is Khalil Shakir, Zion McCollum, Tariq Woolen. Like, is there a better direction they could have gone? That being said, they take quarterbacks in the 150. This is what they do. They either take guys in the top 150 or they sign guys undrafted. They're not really interested in doing late day 3 quarterbacks historically. This was as late as they were going to take a quarterback. I think Zappi has as much starter upside as any quarterback that was on the board at that point, short of maybe Carson Strong, who is Just wild, like floor ceiling disparity, right? I don't know that Carson Strong could end up being a good starter. He also could end up failing out of league in 2 years.
Right.
Zappy's going to be a good, like everybody, Sam Howell. Sam Howell's not good. I don't know why he was ever considered to be the first overall pick.
Because he was surrounded by so much damn talent.
I know why. It's you got to stop with the ranking. The only reason people thought Sam Howell should go over Bailey Zappi is because that's what the expert ranking said.
Yeah.
Sam Howell, anybody who watched college football, anybody who watched UNC, they lost all that talent. Sam Howell fell off, and every single time UNC was in a close game this year, Howell lost them the game. Pick, fumble, bad pass, whatever. Sam Howell wasn't the guy. It was Bailey Zappi, Carson Strong, Caleb Ellaby. Those were the only three guys I was interested in. The reason I think so here's one school. Here's two schools of thought with your backup quarterback. You either want a guy who is a carbon copy of your starter, or you want a guy who's a complete opposite to help on the scout team and maybe be like a package guy, right? Like Taysom Hill.
Right.
Bailey, and they have the opposite action now in Derek King, but Bailey Zappi is, I call Caleb Ellaby Mac Jones. Bailey Zappi is CUSA Mac Jones. That's what he is. Doesn't have the monster arm, but he's very accurate. He knows what he's looking at. He's very poised. Remember when we were all surprised when we found out Mac sort of had that little bit of swagger to him? Bailey Zappi's kind of got that thing going on too, where you can tell he has fun playing the game. The pro comp for him has been Chase Daniel. I think that's spot on. You need a good backup quarterback. They got one. Should they have gone with the slot receiver corner? We can have that conversation. Bailey Zappi is a player. If they were going to take a quarterback in that spot, is the right pick. I wanted nothing to do with Sam Howell. I want nothing to do with Skylar Thompson. People are mad the Patriots took players who were too old. Skylar Thompson's like 27. For 7 years. Bailey Zappi was the pick.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with Bailey Zappi in the 4th round. Like, that's where he was supposed to go. That's where he was the best quarterback left on the board. But to me, Caleb Ellaby ended up going to the Seahawks as a UDFA. He didn't even get drafted. So the value that I see there with just picking up a guy like Caleb Ellaby in the 7th round, or picking him up as a UDFA or something like that, versus using a top 140 pick on a quarterback, I don't know. It just, they never addressed linebacker. They never got faster in the front 7 in this draft. I know that they're hoping Cam McGrone and Raekwon McMillan and the holdovers from last year will end up infusing that speed and that youth into that position. I get that. But I just felt like it wasn't where they needed to go at that point of the draft. I see the value in a backup quarterback. I see the value in a guy like Bailey Zappi. When I see him on tape, what I like about him is obviously the accuracy is there. 70% completion rate. You don't just complete 70% of your passes in a pretty good conference in the CUSA without being accurate. But the timing and the rhythm and the anticipation that he puts on the ball and the touch that he puts on the ball that's Patriot-like, right? Like, there's a lot of throws on his tape. I pulled one and I put it in my post where it's actually an RPO, but they pull the guard in a power RPO concept. He keeps up the football and he throws it with anticipation on the other side of the linebacker and hits his receiver in stride for a big play. Like, those are the types of throws that he makes that you say, okay, that's very Patriot-like. The timing, the rhythm, the accuracy, all that sort of thing is what they look for in the passing game. So I like the player. It's kind of like Cole Strange. Like, I like the player. I just don't know if they needed to take him there, right?
There's a couple of those picks. It's and ultimately, and here's why ultimately I like the class. At the end of the day, the NFL draft is about adding good football players to your team. It's a cliche, but it's true.
Yeah.
They added good football players to their team. There's like 2 picks I think I really ultimately second guessed of the 10. The rest of them, I see why they made them. They're good players. Could they have added better players? That's going to be the question. I will say, though, on Zappi, and a lot of people, a small school quarterback, what are you doing? This is a theme actually with all of their I don't know about Sam, not Sam. Who's
Sam
the
Roberts.
defensive end they took?
Yeah.
Sam Roberts is different because he didn't play any FBS competition, but they're 3 non-FBS guys. There's no stats on Cole Strange. You can probably talk about it. Cole Strange was very good against Kentucky. When Cole Strange played an FBS opponent, he came up big. Pierre Strong had one game against an FBS opponent this year, Colorado State, had 13 carries for 138 yards and 2 scores. He played one of his best games of the year against an FBS opponent. Bailey Zappi against FBS opponents at Army, 28 of 40, 70%, 435 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. The next week against Indiana, 31 of 44, 70.5 completion percentage, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. At Michigan State, this was a ranked Spartans team. They weren't ranked at the time. They were ranked later in the year. At Michigan State, they put the game on his shoulders. 46 of 64, completed 72% of his passes, 488 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And then I'll give you one more. It's not a Power 5 team, but Evan, Appalachian State had a top 15 pass defense in college football this year. Top 15 pass defense in all of FBS. Bailey Zappi against App State in the bowl game, in which he didn't play for most of the fourth quarter because it was a blowout. So let me rephrase it. Bailey Zappi in basically 3 quarters against one of the best pass defenses in the country. 33 of 47, 70%, 422 yards, 6 touchdowns, no picks.
Yeah.
When he's had elite opponents.
Well, I shouldn't say good player. He's a productive player. No doubt about it. When he
faced elite opponents, he played his best games. I bet that's something that they had circled. With the pink stripes and the numbers and the letters, they had some sort of indicator on their draft board for him for that.
Well, Matt Gross said it when we spoke to him last night. You would turn on the tape with Bailey Zappi. It's a lot of touchdowns. It's a lot of completions, right? It's hard not to like the kid when you see how many completions he has. Brian Hoyer's 36 years old, going on 37. Jared Stidham's in a contract year, and there's no reason to re-sign Jared Stidham past this season.
Look, I think I think someone just asked this in the chat. It's a good question. I think right now Bailey Zappi's a better quarterback than Jared Stidham.
Yeah, I think that might be fair. The one last thing I'll say about Zappi, then we're going to move on, is his throwing motion's a little bit unorthodox. I don't know if they'll tweak with it or if they'll just be like, this works for you, so we're going to let it go. But his release timing and his motion in general, when you watch him on tape, it's a little funky, right? So I don't know if they'll play with it or not. The ball comes out quickly because he makes good decisions and quick decisions, and he can read the defense fast. So it doesn't necessarily hinder him a ton, but I think it will be a factor more in the NFL than it was in college, because that extra 10th of a second in the NFL matters, right? So we'll see if they do something with the throwing motion. All right. Anyways,
by the way, shout out to all the people in the chat saying I'm carrying the team water for pumping up Zappi, as if I haven't been doing that since October. I love the kid. He's so fun to watch. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, Alex has been telling me about, you watch Bailey Zappi. Oh, Bailey Zappi. You gotta, I'm gonna stay up and watch Bailey Zappi tomorrow night. Can't wait. So yeah, I knew he was gonna be all over this one. All right. Kevin Harris, 183 in the 6th round. Another running back. I know everybody's, why another running back? Let's all go crazy, right? But when I watched him, I mean, power back, right? First and second down back. Very different from Pierre Strong. Not a speed guy. This is a
very little overlap.
Yeah, but has really, really good power and is really hard to bring down. He's a Mack truck with the football in his hands. I also would have probably been a fine if they never took another running back, right? I mean, it is what it is. But they clearly look at it and say that Harris is our early down projection. Pierre Strong is sort of our do-it-all receiving projection, and that's why they went Harris here later in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said before, why do they need so many running backs? Well, there's different positions within running back. This is true at a lot of positions. Wide receiver is slot and outside. Corner is slot and outside. Safety is deep in box, right? Running back early down, pass catching back. So not a ton of overlap. 2 different players. I am a little concerned with Harris in that. So I like his size. 5'11", 220 as a power back is great. But he did have a back injury last year. He underwent back surgery before the season. His numbers took a dip. He was great in 2020. Led the SC in rushing in 2020. Has the back injury. His numbers took a dip. And it's nothing against him personally. Just in general, the concept of power back with a back injury is a little worrying. Now, worried about back injuries. That's why Rob Gronkowski fell to the Patriots. That worked out fine. That doesn't mean Kevin Harris is going to be Rob Gronkowski. That gave me pause a little bit. That You're asking this guy to run to contact, and he likes to run to contact. He's doing that with a bad back. How durable is he going to be in the NFL?
Yeah, we liked Hassan
And he could very well be a redshirt guy.
Yeah, I think so, 100%. We liked Hassan Haskins from Michigan a lot. Hassan Haskins went a lot earlier than this. Yeah, I remember he went right after the Patriots took Pierre Strong. So Kevin Harris, my guess is that they had both of those guys in that early down back on their board in that mold. And when Haskins went, they decided to scoop up Harris here in the 6th round. There are definitely some runs on tape where he's got guys hanging all over him. He's running through arm tackles. Guys not even making business decisions, not even interested in trying to tackle him in the open field. So there is some things to be excited about. My comparison was Ben Jarvis Green Ellis. I feel like he's, well,
just because he doesn't fumble.
One fumble that matters. That matters to them, right? I mean, one
and 500 something carries.
Yeah. So that's going to matter. He's going to take care of the football. He's going to get what's blocked. He's going to finish runs with good power. He's not going to jump cut out of a tackle, bounce it outside, and run it for 30 yards like Pierre Strong has the chance to do. He's going to just get what's there and not just go down, but be able to push the pile for an extra yard or two and go down, right? And when you're projecting that you have a good offensive line and you're projecting that you have a good run game in general, those types of backs can be productive. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, I think, had a 1,000-yard season with the Patriots in the early 2010s, if I'm not mistaken. So those types of backs that aren't dynamic, that aren't necessarily the quickest or the fastest, but just understand what's in front of them and understand how to get the yards that are there, they can be productive in an offense like the Patriots that does most of the dirty work for them with the offensive line. So there you go. Kevin Harris. On to the next one here, 6-200, the 200th pick in the draft, the one after the Brady pick. Sam Roberts here.
Which, by the way, Cade Mays went with the Brady pick, which I love.
Oh, there we go. Sam Roberts from D2, Northwest Missouri State. Definitely not on my radar. Had to look this kid up and figure out what was going on with him. Really interesting background, though. Cliff Harris Award winner, which is a non-Division I Defensive Player of the Year. Kyle Duggar won it a couple years ago as well, and the Patriots drafted him. So somebody that absolutely dominated the level of competition. And I think that that's something that maybe they look at a little bit differently than other teams, clearly, because, they took a guy in the first round with Chattanooga, right? FCS school. So what do you think about Sam Roberts? I mean, this is really kind of a throw it out there and see what happens, right?
Yeah, this is what you do on day 3. You take guys who are maybe project players or, gonna you don't know, they're super raw, but they could turn into something. 6'5", 292 long arms. Like, he's got the build. I think they announced him as a defensive tackle. I could see him playing all across the defensive line of scrimmage, depending on the situation. So I like that. The thing that stands out, I'm sure this is why he was on their board. He blocked 5 kicks in 4 years in college.
Yep.
They're just going to put this guy on the edge of the field goal block unit and have him go at it. So look, he averaged just over a blocked kick a year in college. If he gives you with rookie contracts 4 years, if he blocks 5 kicks over the next 4 years, that's worth the 200th pick alone, kind of, isn't it? Right. Yeah. So I look, he might be nothing. I don't know. Like, he's so far away. He's a total project player, but I like the mold. I like the mold. I think that they've got a good player to work with. We'll see how they can coach him up. Again, the size, the long arms, the motor. He's got all the uncoachables. So let's see what they can turn him into.
Yeah, I like the block kicks. Macro mentioned this too. If you're going to make the team as a 6th round pick, you're going to have to play in the kicking game, right? You're going to have to play on 4th down. You're going to have to contribute on special teams. And this kid has a knack for doing that. He also has a knack for really being able to 2-gap. He's got long arms. He's 6'5", and you see him be able to throw his hands, really good leverage, get off the block and make a tackle at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. Has really that ability as a 3-4 end to be a 2-gapper, right? And that's what they're looking for there. I think the comp that I used was Dietrich Wise, but with more run power versus the pass rush ability. He's got that same size to him. He's 6'5", 285 pounds. He's a big guy, long guy. and he knows how to use his length a little bit better than Dietrich does in the run game. Dietrich's a better pass rusher, though. So we'll see what happens with this pick. It's a dart for sure. I'm not going to sit here and spend 20 minutes on Sam Roberts, but
that's what you do at that point in the draft. He also wears a neck roll, so that's very encouraging. And he's okay, let me fan out for a second. He grew up a Patriots fan. There's all those tweets of him like shit talking Chiefs fans and stuff. That's kind of awesome. That's pretty cool. I'm not saying it's why they drafted him or it's justification for drafting him, but let's just kind of think about that for a minute. That's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on here to one of my favorite picks of the draft. Honestly, I put this in right behind Pierre Strong as my favorite pick of the draft. Chasen Hines from LSU with pick 210. This is exactly what I think teams should do all the time in the 6th round of the draft or later on day 3. This is a player in Hines who is easily a 3rd or 4th rounder if he's not injured at LSU all the time, right? He dealt with a couple of injuries. It knocked him down the board here. But when you watch him on tape, this is an absolutely explosive blocker, a guy that really can bring it in the run game and has that ability to pull, to get out in front of screen passes. I mean, there are a ton of pancakes. He's stacking pancakes on that tape when he's out there. Very, very explosive. I know he's kind of built like Michael Onwenu, but when I watch him play, and Brandon Thorne used the same comp, when you watch him play, Shaq Mason is, I think, more the playing style that you see with him. Obviously, an absolute ceiling comp there that he turns into Shaq Mason, but as a puller, as a blocker on the move, as a guy that can move his feet, connect, and then really have some sturdy blows with his blocking. I really like Hines. I think he's going to be one of those 6th round finds for the Patriots. And he's got some versatility on the inside too.
Yeah. I think the Shaq Mason, and he told us actually after he got picked when we were talking to him that Shaq Mason is somebody he watched a lot when he was in high school and early on in college to try to model his game after. So that kind of tracks. I don't hate the Michael Onwenu comp though, in terms of like where Onwenu was coming out, right? Not Michael Onwenu now, but where Michael Onwenu was when he came out of Michigan versus where Hines is now. I think that kind of lines up. Like Onwenu, he was probably playing a little too heavy in college and he's lost some weight and that's going to help his mobility. Yeah. He could be in the mix. He could be in the mix, especially if they end up like if Trent Brown, Isaiah Wynn can't play 17 games. If they need to move Michael Onwenu out to tackle again, I think Hines could be in the mix at guard. I really do at right guard. So I like this pick. This is, to me, textbook Patriots late day 3 lineman pick.
Yeah.
Good size, good motor, good football IQ. He just needs his technique to be shored up. They'll coach him up. Like that's what they do on day 3. And you could say the same thing about Stuber too, kind of. This is what they do on day 3. Like Chasen Hines, I wrote this before they took him. I wrote this when they were at the LSU Pro Day. Textbook late day 3 Patriots offensive line pick.
Yeah, I think the other good thing about Hines, and I don't really think that it's so much that the kid can't play or the kid has technique issues. He just had weight issues and injury issues at LSU. And if you get him in the program and you keep his weight down and you keep him motivated and you keep him on the field, then I don't really see any reason why he can't develop into a starter down the line for them on the line. And in a lot of ways, and we'll talk about the big picture here in a second. We got one more to go, but this is exactly why I just keep on coming back to Cole Strange. Like, this is a guy in the 6th round that I think can project down the road into a starting guard as long as they keep his head on right and they keep his weight down. And this is why a 1st round guard just bugs me so much, but we'll get to that in a second. Andrew Stuber in the 7th round at 245. I think we might have had a mock with him in there. My very first mock draft had Andrew Stuber in the 6th round to the Patriots. Just another one of those. You mentioned that Hines is kind of like a perfect day 3 Patriots offensive line pick. Stuber is the same thing at Michigan. Their whole motto was run the damn ball, right? They're a run first downhill scheme at Michigan. He's a power blocker. He's nearly 6'7". He's 325 pounds. They are big. He's a big dude, and he can power and he can run block. And some of the issues that he has with getting the corner turned on him and inability to really get out to pass rushers and cut off the corner on pass rushers, especially guys that line up at like wide 9 or 7 technique. Those issues the Patriots have worked out in the past, right? They've had slower footed tackles at right tackle specifically in the past, like Marcus Cannon, like Mike Onwenu, and they coach around it. They scheme around it. They give them some help. They put the tight end over there, whatever the case may be, and they get away with it. And Stuber can still come downhill and run block with the best of them.
Yeah, and he can play all 4 spots.
Yeah, he's a little tall for guard, but some people think that maybe he can play some guard just because of the power.
He doesn't have like one great trait, but he's good at everything. Yeah. And I don't know that, like, he might be at his ceiling right now. He's on the older side. He's kind of maxed out in terms of his frame, but the guy who's good at everything with that versatility, there's value in that. You know, you need that guy, plug and play him when you have an injury. How many times have they had to rework their whole offensive line to accommodate for injuries? Stuber's the guy pretty much, if you lose somebody on the offensive line, you can plug him in. You feel confident. He'll give you a solid game or two. So, you know, they've kind of been looking for that guy since they lost Adrian Waddle. I say this all the time. That heading into that 2019 season, Adrian Waddle was an understated loss because you had the whole Marshall Newhouse saga and on and on and on. There's value in that true swing tackle. It's a harder position to play than people realize. I think that Stuber has that kind of can fill that role.
Okay, so now that we've covered all 10 picks of the draft, I want to get your final thoughts, Alex, on just the draft as a whole. I do have one question for you that I see just to kind of kick this off. And you've mentioned it a couple times too, age. Age has been a big point that people have made, that the Patriots draft certainly skews a little bit older. Now, I'm not as caught up on age as a lot of other people are. I think the one thing that you really have to remember is a lot of these guys had to transfer. A lot of these guys dealt with the COVID season and had an extra year of eligibility. So in general, across the board, the entire draft was old, right? Yeah. So, I think we're getting a little bit caught up in this guy's 23, that guy's 24. Everybody is 23 in this draft. There's not a whole lot of 20-year-old rookies in the 2020 class, or 2022 class, excuse me. So I think that that's a really important point that's getting missed in this age discussion, is the guy they probably could have drafted instead of the guy that they ended up drafting, the guy you wanted instead of the guy they ended up drafting. That guy's probably 23, 24 years old too. So I want to make sure that point is out there, but how much of a factor do you think that it is, or how much do you care that some of these guys are a little bit older?
I think you worry about it more on the offensive line, just because those guys are retiring so young now. Some guys are retiring at 29, 30 years old. So, you know, how long is Cole Strange really going to be in the NFL? That to me is the biggest concern about that pick. And that's a reason I think why they had him lower. If it's something the Patriots don't care about, then it makes sense to take him in the first round. I think if he was younger, there is a case to be made that he's maybe not a late first round pick, but early to mid second. And then they, on the consensus board, you reach 10 picks at the end of the first round for the 5th-year option. That's not that big of a deal. That's really not. You're not looking twice at that. It does become a meme. So with that, some of the other ones, Marcus Jones is 23. Thornton's the one young guy. I think Thornton's 21. But like you said, it was an older draft as a whole. They've hit on older picks in the past. Mac Jones was 23. Kyle Duggar was 24. It just means they got to keep having good drafts.
Sebastian Vollmer going back a ways was 25-year-old rookie.
Right. I just meant recent history, but you gotta keep churning these out now, because these guys aren't necessarily like, are you going to give Cole Strange a second contract? If he plays under his 5th-year option, he'll be negotiating a second contract at 30 years old as an offensive guard. Right. So you got to keep the pipeline going. You got to keep I can't decide if it's high risk, high reward or lower. Like you get better players when you draft older players. It's just the reality of it. The guys are more physically developed, right? People develop until they're 23, 24, 25 years old. You draft somebody who's 21, not only is he going to grow technically as a football player, he's going to get bigger. He might get faster, stronger, whatever. You're getting guys who are maxed out right now, and there's value in that. The flip side of that is they're going to be gone sooner. So you got to keep the pipeline stocked. So I don't hate it. I don't like it or hate it. I think that there's arguments to be made both ways. They did it. I think that also maybe hints that Bill is seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I think maybe there's a little bit
that was what I was going to mention, was just
right. And I hate getting into this, but
it's a factor.
Maybe he doesn't care about the 10-year projection. Maybe he cares about the 5-year projection. And Cole Strange is a better pick for the 5-year projection than a guy like Bernard Raymond, who's not going to play for a year or two. So that's, and and how often do they give guys second contracts? So I understand why they did it. I could go back and I'm kind of debating myself now on it. I could do this for hours. It's to use your phrase, it's a flavor thing. It's a flavor thing. How do you want to go about it? This is how they wanted to go about it.
I think you kind of hit it there at the end of why I'm really don't care about this. The first one, 4 or 5 years down the line, I think Bill he's 75, right? So we're really starting to talk about whether or not he's even going to be here. He's 70 right now. I'm saying 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
74, 75. So I don't really think he's really thinking about is how old is Cole Strange going to be at the end of his rookie contract. I don't really think he cares. Right. The second thing that I'll say about it, in order for it to matter how old they're going to be on their second contract, you have to be saying to yourself that you're actually going to pay the guy on his second contract and he's actually going to be here beyond his rookie contract. And I hope that these guys pan out to the point where they want to pay them on their second deals. But let's face it, if Tyquan Thornton goes out there and has 3 seasons of 1,000-yard seasons and he's going to be a $25 million wide receiver, I hope that's definitely the case, right? But let's say he doesn't. Right. Let's say he hits the ceiling. That happens. Are the Patriots going to be the team that's going to give him the bag? So that to me is, I think, where the factor is in here. It's one, we'll worry about the second contract when we get there. Let's see if the kid's any good first. And 2, it's, Bill is in a window right now, right? And that I think is that they need to, they're addressing it. Really, they're seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, let's get your favorite pick of the draft. I think you might have already mentioned it. I mentioned mine's Pierre Strong, but I'll go with a different one. I want to give favorite picks of the draft. I want to give then a last put a bow on it and wrap it up here on the draft as a whole. But who's your favorite pick of the draft?
We're not going to do UDFAs.
And favorite UDFA as well.
My favorite pick's Marcus Jones. I think he has the highest ceiling. I think he could be I haven't seen a lot of guys play slot corner the way he plays it. And that's really exciting to me. The concept of a ball hawking slot corner, especially the way the league is trending now with these Tyreek Hill kind of players, right? These speed slots. So I love that pick. I'm high on the Tyquan Thornton pick too. I'll say it. They reached a little bit. I don't care. All right, fine. All right, so go. Sorry, I spoiled yours. Go ahead.
It's okay. My favorite pick is Tyquan.
I really didn't think you would like Tyquan Thornton. I really didn't think you'd like him.
I still need to see on the field that he's going to translate to the Patriots offense, right? That's my biggest concern with Tyquan Thornton is the limited route tree, the lack of ability at the top of the route. That is where I'm concerned of, okay, where is he fit? How do they turn him into more than Nelson Aguilar was last year? Or Philip Dorsett was, or Damiere Byrd was, right? They need to get more out of him than those players were in this Patriots offense. How do they get him there is going to be a big question. But I think that the other thing that I look at with Tyquan Thornton, first of all, the release at the line of scrimmage gets me giddy about him because the Patriots have not had somebody that explosive and that's had that ability to move laterally off of press coverage maybe ever, like that I've seen, at least with covering the team, right? They don't really have guys on their roster that can cross over guys at the line of scrimmage, get up the field and blow past people. Like that skill set doesn't really exist too much with the Patriots. So but the main reason, beyond his tape and beyond his evaluation, the main reason why I like Tyquan Thornton and I love the pick so much is they took a swing at wide receiver in the top 50. They took a chance on a guy that has some upside. They finally did it. Like, I think that the last couple of drafts, because they took N'Keal Harry in the first round, they stayed away from wide receiver as all this wide receiver talent entered the league. All these guys come in 2020 and 2021. They're stars. They're solid role players. They're starters. Even a guy that's not Jamar Chase, like a Deontay Johnson in Pittsburgh, right? Would have been a great fit here. These guys are all coming in, and the Patriots finally took a swing on one of these guys that's coming in. It's not the guy I necessarily would have taken. I would have been all over Sky Moore at that point of the draft. But the point is that they took a swing. They took an opportunity with a guy, and they recognize two things about the evolution of the league. The first thing that they recognize is that you need wide receivers. You need to grab these guys. You need to take a chance on one of these guys in the draft. The second thing that they notice is that they need speed. They need to be faster, and drafting the 4.45 40-yard dash guy is not helping them do that. So they took a fast guy. They took a receiver. Out of all the things that I can kind of wrap around my head with this draft in general, because I didn't love the draft to begin with, if they hit on Tyquan Thornton, then I think the rest of the draft is all gravy after that. And I think that's why I like the pick so much.
I would say they have to hit on Thornton and Strange. Those are the two guys they really need to nail those picks.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to do the UDFAs?
Favorite UDFA?
Well, let's have a quick rundown of each of them.
Okay.
I can't give on just one. So, De'Aaron King, obviously very interesting. 6-year college player, record-setting high school quarterback in the state of Texas, transferred to Houston, was behind a couple guys on the depth chart, played wide receiver, was a decent wide receiver, became a quarterback, had one good year at quarterback, and then he's been hurt a ton. I think they turned him into a wideout. And a practice squad quarterback. He's a fun ball carrier. You got a thought on Derek King? Or
yeah, I think he's a wide receiver convert. I also think that while they're working with him on converting to wide receiver, that scout team quarterback might be a really valuable tool. I see De'Aaron King as a player that's probably going to be on the practice squad next season, and that I think is going to be valuable to them. They have to be able to have a guy on the practice squad, a quarterback that has a little bit of an arm like De'Aaron King does. He's got a huge arm. It's accuracy and all the other things that they have to be concerned about in terms of quarterback play. I think De'Aaron King, don't sleep on the fact that De'Aaron King can then go out there and mimic some of these athletic QBs that they're going to face on their schedule every single year. I think that's a nice little factor here, especially with the UDFA.
Brendan Schooler, I do not know how I missed this guy. For all of my nonsense about Jared Bernhardt and Troy Anderson changing positions and Jordan Myers from Rice, Brendan Schooler was a wide receiver at Arizona for 4 years, transferred to Texas, started playing safety, 2-time Pac-12, all Pac-12 special teamer, ran a 4.41 40 at his combine. Evan, we talked a lot. They needed to restock the special teams unit. They lost Brandon King. They lost Brandon Bolden, Nate Ebner a couple years ago. Matthew Slater is going to be on the way out soon. This guy, this is a guy that's going to fill that role. This guy's going to come in. I said to somebody last night, I don't know if you saw the picture of what he looks like. Yeah. He's got like the long hair and like just the grizzly. Like this dude's going to cover the hell out of some kicks.
Yeah, special teamer. Kind of Nate Ebner-ish, dare I say? Right? I think he's got a little bit of that in there.
I think he's faster. I think he's more on the outside.
Okay.
I don't know that he's somewhere between a gunner and an interior player. I'm not exactly sure what his role will be. He might end up being a gunner. Really interesting one. LeBron Ray, Alabama, defensive lineman. Yes. What is he, 6'5"? Yeah, 6'5", 282. Can play all along the defensive line. Draftable talent. He just gets hurt too much. He played 31 games in 5 years at Alabama. He plays when he's on the field. If he stays healthy, they have a starting caliber player in the NFL. And if he doesn't stay healthy, he's a UDFA, so be it.
Yeah, heavy hands, 2-gapping defensive end, block out, shed, build the wall, right? Those are all the kind of cliches that I could use with a guy like LeBron Ray, and that's what they need. That's what they want. That's what they need at that position. And I think the one thing, the one part that I think in this draft in general, and this was going to kind of be my wrap-up point, so maybe I'll hold off on it. All right, keep going with the UDFAs.
Cody Rusey, center from Houston, transfer from Louisiana Tech. 60 career starts in college, pretty much all at center. I think he started like 2 or 3 games at guard. Experienced offensive lineman. Love it. Yeah. This dude's going to be here back and forth from the practice squad and the roster for like 10 years.
James Ferentz.
Yeah, exactly. James Ferentz. Love that. Demarcus Mitchell, defensive end from Purdue, might be an outside linebacker. Really kind of wasn't on the radar till last year. He had, I have the numbers here.
4.5
sacks. 4.5 sacks in 9 games.
Yeah.
It's really all he's done. He doesn't have much before that. He was a JUCO guy, but a player on the rise, I'll take that. That's a good look. I don't know if you kind of watch him at all. I didn't get to see
it. He's got a little bit of juice in the pass rush from what I've seen, right? He's got a little bit of a first step. I think that, they obviously feel pretty good about their linebacker group and their edge group, and that's why they didn't go there, address that in the draft. So maybe this guy is somebody that can bring some juice there in terms of upside.
Liam Shanahan, Marlboro, Mass native, transferred from after 3 years at Harvard to LSU, 5-year starter. Again, versatility, experience on the interior of the offensive line. Pretty much that's it.
Local he was kind of the unsung hero of that 2019 offensive line at LSU. A lot of teammates, people like that really like the kid, right? A high character kind of guy. Just a Patriot type of player. He's going to come and bring his lunch pail and do the right things.
And then finally,
your guy,
Eastern Michigan punter, Jake Julian. I think we should call him the punt god. I don't believe that nickname is taken. I don't believe anybody is using that. So Jake Julian, the punt god. You want to talk about punters getting drafted high. The 31st overall pick, Evan. Did you know this before I say it? Yeah, I'm going to drive you up the wall with this stat. Jake Julian was the 31st overall pick in the 2021 Canadian Football League draft. He had 270-plus yard punts last year. First player in school history to do that. Kicked on the banks, Eastern Michigan. That's bad weather, all of it. Big leg. We'll see. I don't know that he beats out Bailey. He might be like, put him on the practice squad for a year, and then he's the guy next year. But again, I think we should call him the punt god. I like the way that nickname sounds. I don't believe it's being used. Jake Julian, baby. 31st. You want to talk about value. You know how they talk about, well, this team had him valued at this pick, and we got him at this pick? An entire league had Jake Julian valued as the 31st overall pick in their draft. And the Patriots got him undrafted in their league. I'm being facetious, but anyway. That's value. One league, 30
value, baby, on the punter. They finally got some value on this draft on the punter. Good question in the chat, Alex. Is he left-footed?
I actually don't know. I don't think so.
I'm just kidding.
Evan, it was like 11 in the morning when I looked last
I'm just kidding with you.
He is right-footed.
Right-footed. Oh, no. Nope. That's that.
But he is also from Barrie, Ontario, which there's a Bruins player from there, and I can't remember who it is right now.
All right, so there you have it. There's your UDFAs. I'm not going to give you any sort of analysis on them.
No, I want a Jake Julian take from you, Evan.
I think it tells us that Jake Bailey is the guy, and we were maybe a little bit overrating that as an area the team is going to address in the draft. That's what I think. Because they had multiple shots at taking Matt Araiza and were just out on it, right? So if they really wanted a punter, they easily could have gotten Matt Araiza at multiple points in the draft, and they were not going there. So clearly they think very, very highly of Jake Bailey, as they probably should, right? Like, I mean, he's a good punter, so they probably should, and that's where we're at. All right, let's put a bow on it. Give me your final take about the draft. I don't want to call it a grade because I hate draft grades. I think they're stupid.
I mean, I didn't do that this morning. I already have one, so whatever.
Yeah, I kind of had one too, but I didn't put an actual grade on it because I copped out. So give me a final assessment of the draft. Let's call it that.
Yeah, I kind of said this earlier in the show, and it's what I keep going back to. At the end of the day, the NFL draft is about adding good players to your football team. I can safely, I feel like confident saying 7 or 8 of the 10 picks, I feel like they added guys who are NFL talents, whether that be starting caliber talent, backup caliber talent, guys who are NFL players. And I know this, well, shouldn't they all be NFL players? That's not always the case. That's rarely the case that 100% of the players you draft are NFL talents. I feel confident that they got them. The legacy of this draft is going to be who they didn't take. It's going to be looking at Daxton Hill. It's going to be looking at Quay Walker. It's going to be looking at Khalil Shakir, guys like that, and wondering what could have been. And we do that in New England, right? The 2019 receiver class. How often do we talk about that? So that's where I think ultimately you have to be happy with it because they added good players, and that's really all you can ask for. But we're going to be doing a lot of roster watching over the next 4 years.
So my concern with the draft is still the same as what I wrote yesterday. I am just concerned about the ceiling of the draft in general. I think that they hit a lot of singles here. I think they got on base on a lot of these picks, and I'm just concerned. If I have any concern, I think that's where it's at, is which one of these guys is going to be a 10-year cornerstone on the roster? Which one of these guys is going to be, are we going to say, oh, well, that guy had a borderline Patriot Hall of Fame career? Which one of these guys is going to be a foundational pillar of the rebuild? After the draft last year, I get that a quarterback's a quarterback and it's different when you're talking QBs, but even a pick like Barmore, as long as they keep paying him, I think is going to be a Patriot for the next 10 to 15 years, and we're going to look back on his career as, I don't want to say Richard Seymour because he's a Hall of Famer, but as one of these great Patriots D linemen, right? And I don't know if this group has that guy unless Tyquan Thornton gets there, unless Tyquan Thornton hits. Maybe Cole Strange could do that as well, but I feel like Cole Strange is one of those Joe Tooney, Shaq Mason level linemen, which is a great player, but he's not Logan Mankins, right? So
I don't know.
That's my concern with the draft.
I just feel Thornton and Marcus Jones are both such high upside picks.
I like Marcus Jones too. I don't know but maybe, I don't know. He's a slot corner. He's 5'8". I just don't know if the ceiling is at that size in that position. He's not an outside corner. He does, his size is going to cap him a little bit and limit him a little bit. But yeah, I hear you. He's an explosive player and he's going to contribute in multiple ways. So I see what you're saying.
I think if you want to say they didn't make enough,
Jones becoming the Troy Brown version on defense, right? Like, could he be a corner Troy Brown?
So that's what I'm saying. Let's say he houses one kick a year and is their starting slot corner for 8 years. I'd call that foundational.
All right. Well, fair enough. I just, again, I have some concerns about, I'm not even caught up necessarily in the value thing. I know everybody looks at,
the picks are made at this point. It doesn't matter.
Right. The consensus board had him here. The consensus board had it. That really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point. It didn't even matter in the moment. I think we all overrated all of that to begin with.
Yeah. So actually, let me give this as a walkaway. Remember last year after the draft, I said my big thing that I learned from that draft was that it's nature versus nurture. As much as we want to talk about, is this player good? Is this player bad? A lot of it's fit.
Right.
The lesson for this draft is F the boards.
Yeah.
All it takes, if 31 teams and everybody in the media and all the wannabe media, and if everybody in that group has a player as a 4th round grade, but one NFL GM thinks he's worth taking in the 1st round, then he's a 1st round player. All it takes is one team to value a player in the 1st round or anywhere on the board, right? It's not about the consensus. It's who of the 32 NFL GMs is the highest grade on him. That's ultimately what his value is. And I just think shout out to the one guy on NFLmockdraftdatabase.com who had Cole Strange going 28th in a mock draft. I think we may need to invite that guy on for a mock draft next year because he clearly has the right idea. But the boards don't mean anything. The boards don't mean anything. If one team values a player highly, then he's a highly valued player.
So
the market sets the value. The value does not set the market.
Fair enough. One more thing, and
I might have got that backwards. I don't know.
Okay, Gordon Gecko. I've come around to most of the draft in general. I've kind of stomached it and whatever. I think the biggest thing I also mentioned that I feel a little bit weary about, they didn't get any better in the front 7 in this draft. They didn't even draft a front 7 player until the 6th round, and that was Sam Roberts, right? So they clearly feel really, really good. And I guess maybe this is a discussion that we can have in future shows, right? About the outlook of the roster now. They feel really, really good about their linebacker group, Cam McGraw and Raekwon McMillan coming back from injuries, giving guys like Uche a chance to play. I think they feel really good about that. But the point is, Ronnie Perkins. The point is that they were 25th against the run last year, and their run defense didn't get any better, right? So that does concern me. The other thing is Jerod Mayo talked about, we got to get faster. We got to get more explosive on defense. They didn't really do that either, right? So
they drafted Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones, explosive player. You could say they didn't do enough, but they did address it.
I think Jerod was talking more about linebackers because he's a linebackers coach. And
that's fair. So, that's fair. Yeah.
Right. So that was the one thing I thought as well, that it was a little bit of a head scratcher. But overall, I am coming around to the draft. And at this point, we're at the point where we just got to say, look, the draft is what the draft is, and let's get these kids into camp and into the preseason, and let's see what they're made of, right? I mean, the Patriots are clearly high on a lot of these guys that they picked. Matt Groh really went to bat for Cole Strange and Tyquan Thornton on Friday night after the day 2 of the draft. He really pounded the table for those guys, and you saw some conviction with those picks. So we'll see what ends up happening. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and willing to see what these guys do. All right, we're T-minus an hour and 20 minutes until the Celtics. Alex, you have a real quick Celtics prediction for the people?
Oh, I think the Chris Middleton injury ends up being a big deal. I'm going Celtics in 6.
All right, Celtics in 6. I had Celtics in 7 last night on the end of the stream. John asked me this question as well, so I'll stick with Celtics in 7. But I also think Chris Middleton will end up being a big factor. But you can go ahead and check out team player here, Alex. You can go ahead and check out Celtics CLNS coverage with the Celtics guys, Celtics coverage on their YouTube channel over there. They do a fantastic job covering the team. They have streams just like we do here on Patriots Press Pass, recapping games right after the game and things like that. Garden Report, one of the best in the biz on post game. So go ahead and check out the Garden Report guys. Shout out Bobby Manning and the team over there. And they're going to have you covered for the Celtics playoff run in the Bucks Celtics series. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going on Tuesday. So cross your fingers that the jinx is over, Alex, right?
Oh no. Let me just say we wrap it up. This is 4 drafts. Now we've worked together.
Yes.
Going back to 2018.
Are you about to get sentimental on me?
No, it's been a pleasure. I just want to say we've done 4 drafts together. We missed 2020. I wasn't working at the time, but and a huge thank you to everybody who followed along both here, my 98.5 stuff. I love this time of year because it's so interactive. Y'all make it great. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, here with that. We really appreciate everybody that watched us, that joined the mock draft shows, that joined all the preview shows for the draft and all that kind of stuff, and watched us on the streams here during the draft, Patriots beat, and also on the streams with the live pick takes and stuff like that. We really appreciate all of you for doing that. And yes, Alex, even working with you has been an honor, and it's been a pleasure. I'm glad that we still get to do this. Obviously Alex is full-time now at 98.5. So I'm glad that we still get to be able to do the podcast here with each other and still get to have takes. One day we're going to have our own radio show. That's what I'm saying. One day we're going to have, it's going to be the Barth and Lazar show here in Boston. So I really appreciate you still doing this with me. And I appreciate everybody still watching us and following along over the last 3 days. It's been a long 3 days, but it's over. And now we move on to mini camp and OTAs, end of the month. It's already May, right? May 1st today. So in a couple weeks, May 25th or 24th or 26th. Something like that. 26th. I'm totally off. 26th, we are going to go to the first OTA practice of the offseason for the Patriots. Mandatory mini camp is June 7th through the 9th, I want to say, or something like that, right? First week or early on in June. I remember that. June 7th through the 9th, I think is what it is. And we will be there. Both Alex and I will be there. We'll have Patriots Beat podcast recapping the days and the workouts that we get to see. And then it's away we go. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to still have you covered, even though the draft is over. It's bittersweet. It's been a long haul, so I'm ready to sleep for like 3 straight days. But it's also bittersweet because we love this time of year, and we are, now we got to start all over for 2023, right? That's the game. So thank you so much, everybody.
Henry To'o, DeMarvion Overshown.
There you go.
2023.
Yeah, there you go. And thank you so much for everybody for watching. The numbers have been just blowing me away last couple of days, and we really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week. We're not going anywhere, so don't tune out on us. We'll see you guys next week, and thanks so much for following all of our draft coverage. And for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday.